Hello and good evening. Good evening. This is Lewis Helps live, 7 p.m. on Sundays. Lewis Helps going live 7 p.m. on Sundays. So I thank everybody for their support, for sharing, for tuning in, for catching the videos. I really want to reinforce the purpose of the channel being to build a community. I would love feedback dealing with what should I be talking about. What do you want to hear about? I would love feedback dealing with people that want to come on and discuss topics. You might disagree with me. That's fine. You can come on and disagree with me on some topics. I'm not necessarily looking for everybody to just go along to get along. Everybody has their own viewpoints, their own opinions, and their own experiences. My ultimate goal is to present solutions for healing the relationships with our children. Everything is relationship. If the child does not trust you, if the child does not look at your authority and look at it as a helping tool, does not look at the men and women in their lives as people that care about them and also that they can trust, our society is going to continue to crumble. Society is going to continue to crumble generationally. So last week I talked about reading, the importance of reading. So now I want to be more specific about what should we be reading and what should our children be reading and what should you be reading with your children. For me, the number one tool would be the Bible. I would say start in Proverbs. Proverbs is a book of wisdom. The reason why Proverbs was written was to give young people wisdom and knowledge so that they will be wise adults. That's basically what it says in the beginning, to give a young man subtlety. That the wisdom of God, the implications that life will come at you, like I said, varying levels. There will be a wave, a tide of pressures, of overwhelming circumstances that will happen to young people. How those young people are equipped to handle those will deal with how they mentally see and perceive opportunity, challenges, relationships. This is what we call adverse childhood experiences or traumas. Is that when a child is overwhelmed and not able to handle what's coming at them in life, these things become traumas. And then they become triggers for risky behavior, behavior that does not lead to a successful life or a fruitful life. Those are very dangerous things. And the way we can combat those things, and we should combat those things, is by training our child up in the way they should go. Proverbs helps with that. Proverbs coincides, it's 31 Proverbs. Just so happen we'll never get more than 31 days in a month. If you read one every day, like today's 31st, if you read 31st, tomorrow you read the first proverb, the second proverb, you continue to do that as a habit throughout life, it will most definitely be beneficial. It will most definitely be beneficial to you and your child's life. The outcomes will be improved decision-making, improved emotional regulation, improved relationships, improved empathy. Proverbs will give you all that. I am against foolishness. And when I say that, I am against books that are geared towards children participating in foolishness. I know that people say, well, they need to imagine and they need to create and whatnot and so forth. And that sounds really great. My question is this. Before those types of books were being made and men and women were living on the earth, you had young children, and the young children were growing up to be responsible adults, to be able to take care of themselves, to be able to successfully navigate society as it was. And then we have this explosion of cat in the hat type books and nonsense, which I believe is nonsense. And now you have generationally men and women who are completely overwhelmed, anxious and depressed in life. The life circumstances are completely overwhelming to them because what's been implanted into their spirit, into their psyche, into their mentality is foolishness. And there's nothing to draw from. You have to have inputs, and those inputs are going to dictate what your outputs are. So when you are pressed by life, when a life challenge comes, who you are, what you are, the skills you have acquired over time is what will rise to the top. So if I have coddled and I have played with my child so much to the point where their brain is mush, their confidence is only in being coddled by mommy or daddy, or in material possessions, or in false awards and false places in society based on letter grades, and then real life happens when none of that stuff means anything, and I don't have the tools and the skill to be able to handle the problem in front of me, is debilitating. And what it does is it crushes the spirit of a human being. And that's what we have. We have people that have been, what's up, Isaac? Yes, clear structure. We have people, and we're surrounded by them. And within us, a lot of us have that. We have the grown man, the grown woman temper tantrum, the little kid, the little Peter Pan doesn't want to grow up. It's foolishness. It's foolishness. I'm all for fictional stories that lead to a point. Allegories, illustrations, the parables of the Bible. Me and my mother were talking about the parables of Christ and how he taught. And just imagine, what if you only taught your child the same way Christ taught? That all the illustrations of how things go and all the stories that he told and how he used what was common to the people that he was trying to reach and explaining to them who he was, why he came on earth, what his purpose was, and therefore by understanding Christ's purpose, understanding our own purpose, and taught by asking questions. What if you taught your child by asking questions? And that's really what Christ did. Christ would always ask a question. They ask him something, he asked them something. Because everything you need to know is actually inside of you. It is the job of adults and parents and mentors and teachers and grandmas and grandpas to reveal that which is already in the child, which is already their identity of where they come from. When you talk about clear structure, your yes got to be yes, your no got to be no. So we're hypocrites, and our children know that we're hypocrites, so they don't trust us. Because we're all over the place. Because we have them learning from 5 different angles. The teacher saying one thing in this period, the next teacher saying another thing. They're coming from monkeys over here. You got this teacher telling them this over there. And then we got school, Sunday school. What's up? How you doing, Sandra? And happy birthday. You got all these different voices coming in, and the child is completely overwhelmed because the child, you don't know the real from the fake. You have no idea. It has been proven that when you see something on camera, like if you're watching me right now, your brain cannot tell the difference between if I'm in the room with you or if I'm on film. So how many times have you set your child down and they've watched people get murdered, and then we wonder why they desensitized to violence? How many times have they seen people raped, abused, violence, and we see them desensitized? And therefore now they have behavioral problems because they don't understand social norms, because they watch cartoons, which are foolishness. They're not watching anything that's leading them to something. What's up, Isaac? Exactly. They're imitating. That's how we learn. We watch people and we imitate. So if you are not specific and intentional in who your child should be imitating, what your child should be imitating, then therefore they're going to search for models. They're going to search for these people. This is why gangs are so good at recruiting kids, because they give them a clear line. They give distinctions. They give them a name. They give them a purpose, and it's clear cut. We, on the other hand, we all over the place. We don't know what we want to do. So the child is confused. We confused, maybe even more so than the child. So the child is looking for something that's got a clear and straight line. So I said, where does it lead? So as you're not intentional in the training up of the child and what the child is consuming, and that's why they should be reading, because the child has to consume so much information, so much wisdom, so much knowledge, so that what is in them can be revealed. It's not so much that they're learning from, it's that what's in them needs to be revealed. And where you pay attention at, it produces the fruit in your life. So if I'm imitating the wrong model, if I'm imitating a model that is not of me, that is not of the same likeness, the same image, the same power as me, what it'll do is it'll lead me into confusion. It leads me down a path of destruction because it is very hard. It is debilitating. It is destructive to try to fit in somebody else's shoe, to try to play somebody else all day. Like how Denzel and them, they stay in character all day. It's hard to stay in character and you know you faking when you're not who you're supposed to be. So back to what if we taught like Jesus taught? And you sat down with kids and every time they had a question, you sat there and you went back and forth. And you asked questions and you asked them, okay, I see you, Isaac. And you tell them, well, what do you think about it? How many times have you been frustrated, want to know something? You had a great friend or a great confidant, somebody that you could reach out to, and they didn't judge you. They didn't give you a solution. But what they did is they started asking you questions. And before you knew it, you were sitting there and you had already figured it out. You didn't even realize you weren't as confused as you thought you were. You weren't as frustrated as you thought you were. You already had the answer inside of you. It just needed to be revealed. And there's a pattern of dialogue that reveals that. The way that Christ taught, the way that Christ brought his message about was in Revelation. It wasn't so much in telling people something they weren't already familiar with. What it was giving them, as Isaac was saying, that clear structure, that clear pathway, that the thing that is in you, yeah, this is the thing I'm talking about. This is the thing that you should be meditating on. This is the thing you should be thinking about. So let's talk about make-believe. Let's talk about make-believe. When I was a child, we went to Disney World. My father, myself, and my sister. We went to Disney World. And in Disney World, this was back in the 80s. They had, I don't know, they still got this. They had these like little worlds. So it was like little China, little Morocco, or whatever, little Africa. And these worlds were bringing a piece of the culture in a economic way. You had a whole bunch of stuff to buy. Like you was over in that country. So through that make-believe world, the Disney World trip, going to Disney World, the experience of going to Disney World, in my mind, what I made up was, well, because we're going to Disney World, that must mean that everything on earth is going to be okay. My mom and dad going to get back together. Everybody going to be happy. We're going to be one happy family. All the problems of our past, the destruction, the violence, the confusion, must be on hold, must have changed because we are in Disney World. We are in a magical place. While in Disney World, we went and I got me a ninja sword. I already had plans. This was near the end of the summer. I wanted to be a ninja for Halloween. So I was getting my stuff together. And that whole fantasy from Disney World carried over into my life. It carried over when we got back to Cleveland, Ohio, and Disney World wasn't real. And on Halloween night, when I was a ninja, one of the most traumatic, violent, vicious scenes that I've ever seen would play out in my life. Why am I bringing that up? Disney World is foolishness. Disney World was designed by Walt Disney to create a system, an economic system, which would bring him great wealth and notoriety. And it worked. Like most things work that are foolishness, that are entertainment. We want bread and circus. The exposure to the Disney World was a cop-out of my father of trying not to deal with the true issues, which were social emotional issues, which were mental health issues, which were issues of integrity, which were issues of communication. So the trip was a false image, a false replacement for this euphoric atmosphere, this euphoric experience that we would have that would change and alter the reality of what our real life was. It's the same thing as like taking drugs. It's the same thing like when you watch a movie. You're trying to dull your senses and dull your mind. This is what destroys a child's mind. This is what destroys the development of a human being. You are to take your creativity and your imagination to develop real solutions. Your creativity and your imagination should lead to a real outcome, to a real result that brings a solution for life, for your life in particular. That is what a child should be taught. So when I'm talking about reading, I'm talking about, quite honestly, if what you wanted to do is train up your child in the right way, by the time your child 10 years old, your child could be doing your taxes for your whole family. That's the capacity and ability of the child. You slowing them down. The school is slowing them down. Your nonsense, your lack of confidence is slowing your child down. By the age of 10, your child could be balancing the checkbook and doing the taxes for your whole house, if that's what you want them to do. J.P. Morgan's father had him balancing books, doing accounting work when he was a very young child, because that was the capabilities of his mind. That's how we know who J.P. Morgan is to this day. That's why to this day, his family still has great wealth, great power, because his father was preparing him to control not only his mind, but control a piece of the world. We are not preparing our children for the battle that is before them. We give them imagination. We give them, hey, ma, love you. We give them all the bread and circus. The reason being is because we hadn't. It's okay to admit I might not know how a thing works. The purpose of this channel is not to shame anybody. It's not to dog anybody. The hope is that we would start reaching out to one another, that we would start being a crutch to one another, because life is hard and you do need support. That support should come from within your own community. So the hope is to build a community. Go to lewishelps.com, register your email, and this is where we're going to begin our community. This is where we're going to begin talking about specific things, specific solutions to problems. This is where I'm going to be giving out a lot of resources, a lot of materials and tools that will help us in this battle for the relationship with our children. Relationships are everything. If you think about it in life, everything you have is tied to a relationship. There's nothing that goes on in your life that is not tied to a relationship, beginning with your thoughts, the way you see yourself, with the things you believe you can do, the things that you believe are limitations. There's a relationship you have with yourself and where you come from. If you believe you come from monkeys and skunkies and lizards and things, guess what? You're very limited. You might not be able to. But if you are created by the Most High God, He who created all things, and in Him is all things, and He's all powerful, and that you have that DNA running through you, that you have that mind, that same ability in you, then guess what? If you can, you can. All things are possible to you according to your faith. So relationship is so important, because the relationship of where you exist from, where do you come from? That's the beginning. Children don't know where they come from. These are the things we should be dealing with the child with, giving them a very strong sense of identity, where they come from. They're not inferior to anything. And that there is no metric that can limit them, nor is there a metric that can tell them that they are better than someone. This is what grade school does with the grades and all these other things. You're an A student, you're a B student, you're in the red book, you're slower than this person. You have a low IQ because you took this IQ test. But who made up the IQ test? It's a metric made by somebody else. If I judge myself and my intelligence and my abilities based off of some metric that you give me, I've just made you God. Because you run around talking about you got this high SAT, or you got all these A's. Who made the test? If that person can approve you and tell you that you are at this level of education and tell you that you're higher than someone else at this level of education, they have just become your God, because they have just created you. Because you just now, you tell yourself in this figment of your imagination, oh, I'm a great student, I'm an intelligent person. Because somebody gave you a test, you filled in some boxes, some circles, some bubbles, and now you think you're intelligent. And then there's another kid that filled in that same test, and because the test wasn't designed according to how their mind works, they didn't do as well in that metric. So now that kid thinks they're dumb. Both people are confused. Both are confused. The A student with the high SAT and the high IQ score is just as confused, if not more so, than the kid that thinks he's dumb. Than the young lady that thinks she don't read well because somebody judged how you read based upon their own agenda. It's so very important how you talk to your kids. It's so very important how you explain the world to your kids. That's the most important thing. How do you explain and give meaning to the things that are shaping them? That comes through reading. What they read, you should be very picky. What they talk about, what's being said, How do you tell them about school? That, yeah, school is to judge you in a certain category, but that's not life. The category is not life, and nor is it your identity. Schools are not designed to give you your identity. Schools are designed to grade you upon the metrics of that school system's curriculum. Children don't know that. So when a child goes to school and he struggles, they think they're stupid because they think their identity is tied to that thing, which my parents say go up here and do well, and all the other kids are getting applauded, but I'm not because I'm struggling. So now you believe that life is a struggle. You believe life is this hard thing. So now it shapes the way you think. Did Christ ever tell anybody that they was dumb, stupid? He got mad a couple times. He accused a few people, but that was based off what they answered when they asked him a question. The metric has to be you as a human being worthy of love, worthy of compassion, worthy of redemption. That is the metric. That metric is set forth in the principles and the parables that Christ taught. Not in a school, not in a school building. We have to be careful how we shape child's identity. It sets them up for who they'll be as a human being. It is the reason why in society right now, we have this broken community. We have people that's doing quite well. You got kids that's doing quite well. Everybody ain't necessarily struggling in the metrics of the world. Economics, schooling, progressing in those areas. What I'm talking about is in the areas of community, we suck. We suck across the board, all over the world. The majority of our neighborhoods, we pull into the driveway, you go in the garage, and you hope don't nobody say nothing to you. You have no idea who live across the street, next door, around the corner. You don't know what's going on with nobody in your neighborhood, nor do you care. And then we wonder why so many potholes. We wonder why the neighborhoods are getting broken down because we're not involved. We're not invested. We're not invested in people. We're not invested in people building. We're only invested in being left alone because it's easier that way. It's very uncomfortable to reach out to a community. It's very uncomfortable to do the thing that you don't want to do. It's very uncomfortable to see somebody that's equal to you and that all the kids in the neighborhood is your kids. And we should care about all the children and what they're doing. You should care about what they're teaching at the schools. When the last time you looked at your kids' schools books? When the last time you looked at the books and saw what the teachers is teaching your kids? When was the last time you really thought about, well, I sent my kid to school happy, then after they have them for a few years, all of a sudden now they suicidal and they slamming the doors and they mad, they angry, I can't talk to them no more. Put it together, man. And I'm not dogging teachers because the teachers, y'all not complicit in this, quite honestly, because y'all really think y'all doing, the best y'all can. Y'all don't create curriculum, really. I'm talking about the curriculum that's being taught. The curriculum that's being taught is purposeful. And not all schools teach the same curriculum. So I know there's some outliers out there. But what I'm talking about is the general curriculum that's being taught in public schools. Really check that out and see where that's guiding your kids to. That's a roadmap to where your kids are going to go because it's giving them their identity. It shouldn't be. But if you're not intentional in giving them their identity, they're going to make it up. And that made up identity is going to come directly from them school books, directly from the challenges, directly from where that school categorizes your child at. So I just wanted to talk about the reading. I want to be more specific about what I'm talking about with reading. A great book, which I think is a great book that families should read together, is Daniel Goleman, Emotional Intelligence, Why It Can Matter More Than IQ. This is an excellent book. It's a book that I think that is a great family read, to read with your daughter, read with your son, to read as a couple, to read with grandparents, their grandkids. I believe that it's a book that will start a conversation about something that's so important, emotional intelligence and being able to control oneself. Controlling oneself is what we're really after. It's the thing that we want. We want power to be able to do what we want to do. It's why we hate when somebody tell us what to do. I was listening to Miles Monroe. He said, we hate when people tell us what to do. Why is that? The reason being is we know intrinsically we are created to rule and have dominion. That rule and that dominion is over one's emotions and one's thoughts and the power to make a decision to create their own outcomes. And when you don't get that to a child, we set them up for failure. And we wonder why they struggle as adults. We wonder why your child is 20-something years old, 30 years old, and you still helping them pay the rent. while they still living in your house, while they still can't figure it out. Sometimes it's too much cake. You can be abusive and you can be overly hard on the child. We've seen that too. But being too soft on the child and not ever allowing the child to grow up and go and learn how to fly and build their wings up too is just as destructive. And we're in a society that is absolute mush. Just the things, the concerns, the discussions that we're having, the things that we think are problems. And the reason why they're problems in life is such a fight for survival is because mentally we're not prepared with the skills to overcome adversity, which that's all life is about. All life is about is meeting the challenge, overcoming, having dominion over it, and then conquering a new mountain. That's the best thing you can get your kid. Like I said, get your kid in the habit of doing things they don't want to do because it's the right thing to do because it's going to lead to the right outcome. Get your child in the habit of doing things the child does not want to do because it's the right thing to do. And explain to them the outcome of doing the thing. Not to just do it because I said do it. That doesn't make no sense. That don't make no sense to you. If your boss said do that, it don't make no sense. It's frustrating you. Why would you tell a child that? If you can't explain it, you shouldn't be asking the child to do it. If you can't explain to them why the child is doing it, what the outcome is going to be and why it's going to be positive, you shouldn't be telling the child to do it. This is how you lose credibility. Life is about credibility. Authority is about credibility, integrity. If you want to maintain the integrity and credibility with your child, communicate with your child at a higher level. That's going to come through reading. Sometimes the conversations you can't have, a book like this, Emotional Intelligence, might open up a conversation and give you some insight also, because we have to be forever learners. As long as you live, you should be learning. That's the purpose of it. So y'all take care. I love y'all. Love yourselves.